Hello everybody, welcome to Tree Doctors. Today we're opening the show on State Street and seeing if this is a huge catalpa tree. We got a lot more trees to show you and a lot of interesting people to talk to. We'll catch up with Ed Dickey right after this on Tree Doctors.
You know, some trees have insect problems, some just have construction damage. Well, we can handle them both generally at the same time. I'm using a soil injection here, building a mold of chemicals all around the root ball. It gets translocated into the crown of the tree. It has a very long residual. Stays working for a year or better, killing insects as well as growing new feeder roots and increasing the canopy of the tree. 9 different chemicals is going in this at once. So there's so much we can do that we used to couldn't do, and it's in most cases it's cheaper than it used to be. And just name me just any one thing that's come down in price. Well, taking care of your trees have come down in price. Give us a call. You'll be surprised. We're the Tree Doctor, Dickey Tree Service, in your yellow pages under trees.
Let's go out in the field with the head tree doctor of Dickey Tree Service, Ed Dickey, right now on Tree Doctors.
I got called in to check this tree, and you can see it's just a hole here with it's been leaking something at one time. And it didn't take me but a minute to figure out what it was. There was a hive of bees up to just a short time ago that lived there. And when they swarmed, they dripped and they made all this mess all the way down to, you can see the rain hadn't washed that away yet, but they're gone now. But that's a hive of bees lived in there for a while. So of course the correct thing to do is to fill this hole and keep that from happening in the future, and that way to preserve the tree and because this will eventually erode away this bark. But that's exactly what was in there, a hive of bees. And when we get done with it, the bees won't be welcome there anymore. I'm here in Jonesboro, and here with me is Janine Wood. And Janine, do you remember last fall what was going on with your trees here?
They weren't looking real good, and I was worried about them, but you treated them, and they're looking good now. They're green and full and still working on them, and that's what you're here for.
Yes.
More treatment, more treatment.
Yes, ma'am. That's what Janine is talking about. Last year I wouldn't treat this. She had just recently built this house, and I wouldn't treat them all. We treated a portion of them because at the time it was in the fall of the year, and I really couldn't tell how bad those hickory was hurt. And I'm back here. We're going to treat the others that she's got left, but what we've treated is doing good, and these hickories have managed to survive so far too, haven't they?
Yeah, and they're really the kind of tree that you can't tell anything about in the winter because they look really bad in the winter, and these ones that keep leaves longer you can tell a little bit more about, but they're all looking pretty good.
Yes, ma'am. I don't know if I told the viewers before, but what do you do, Miss Wood?
I'm at the co-op, the educational cooperative at Walnut Ridge.
And
for a year now.
Okay. And so this home is new then, isn't it? Just about a year old.
Yes, I'm the first one to live here, and trying to get all these things squared away, and one of the top priorities were these trees.
Any tip you want to pass on to the viewers to what to do and what not to do to your trees when you come in here and build a house on a hill?
Well, one thing I've learned after the fact, because the house was already constructed, even though I'm the first one to live in it, some of the things that I see that can happen, especially when you're on an incline like this, that sometimes when they build the lot up, they go beyond the growth line, and that can cause some problems, which is the case in the one in the front yard. But I think maybe not too much damage has been done. But that's one thing. And another thing is, I wasn't here for any decisions. I know they had to take some trees out, or thought that they had to, in the back, but other than that, I'm pretty pleased. I'm glad that they saved these, because the ones here that's in this little loop, as this is Circle Drive, it is a real, you mentioned this the last time, that it sort of is a sound buffer, and I've really noticed that a lot. And other than the aesthetic looks of the place, it does serve that purpose, and it's a busy corner too, which that's needed.
Yes, ma'am, and you have a sense of protection when you got a line of trees
Right.
that thick by you too. Now, Miss Wood, your house been around how long now?
I've been here, well, a year, and I've gone through, this is my second summer, I think. Time flies when you're having a good time. I love my backyard. One thing I like, one reason that I purchased this property is because of the mature trees, and right in the middle of my backyard I have an evergreen, that cedar tree there, and birds just love this yard. Now, the house that I lived in before in Mariana, we had bird feeders and bird baths, but these birds just take to it because of the trees. They're here. They like all of these trees. They're the evergreens and the bushes and everything, and it makes this yard really pleasant to watch, because they use the bird feeder and they use the bird bath, and it's cool and pleasant here in the afternoon. This is the backyard is in the north, and the front is southern exposure. That's my favorite. That was another one of my priorities for decision making about buying this particular property. But the trees are key, because if you have a great backyard and no mature trees, to me it's just not the same. And there's a lot of property for sale and lots of nice houses, but to me that's the starting place, is a house on a lot with nice trees.
Yes, ma'am. That's the point I wanted to get across to the builders out there. Don't be so quick to cut those trees down, because they really help a house. In your case, they made the decision whether to buy the lot or not, didn't they?
That's absolutely true. And I know when my son recently purchased a home in Nesbitt, Mississippi, and he has beautiful old trees. And I don't see how it's hard to put a dollar value on a tree, because no matter how much money you have to invest in a home, you cannot put that kind of landscaping feature like a mature tree out there, and it's just a top priority for me.
Well, Miss Wood, I appreciate you telling the viewers about how you feel about trees.
I said I came from a long line of tree huggers, and it's trees to me, it just sort of feeds your spirit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I have a lot of people ask me about their yard not being able to grow grass underneath a tree, and the first thing people want to do is just thin out their tree, cut a bunch of limbs off. They're blaming it on the tree that the grass won't grow. That's not always the case of what's the matter. A lot of times you got sorry ground. Your ground might not be good. You need to incorporate a little organic matter in it. Easy done. You just take a little tiller out there, till it a little bit, and mix in some organic matter. Put some fertilizer to it. You might want to lay you some sod, but if you do lay sod, it takes a little aftercare. Needs a little water, needs to get a hold of the ground so it can grow. And then it needs a little food later on to keep growing, because I guarantee you, wherever you bought that sod, they fed that sod periodically. You bring it to your yard, expect it to grow, don't give it nothing. Don't work. So take care of the stuff, and don't go to cutting your tree back and thinking it's the tree's fault, and then later on get the sod. Try these other methods and leave your tree alone, and try to get that ground up and running. You'll be glad you did. I'm here in Cardwell, Missouri, and here with me is Floyd Britton. And Floyd, why don't you tell the viewers what went on here about a month ago?
Well, we had the worst hailstorm that I had ever seen in my life. And like you can see the tree here, it stripped the trees, it stripped all my trees, beat holes in my siding, and tore my roof up.
How big was the hailstone, Floyd?
Well, they were a little smaller than baseballs, but it was kind of jagged. It wasn't nice and round, pretty. It was just jagged. Hail stayed on the ground it happened between 5:30 and 6, and hail was still on the ground at 9 o'clock at night.
That's a lot of ice.
Yes, it is.
Also, we talked before the camera come on, killed a lot of birds here in the yard too, didn't it?
Yeah, it covered my yard full of birds. Couldn't hardly walk without stepping on birds, and you've seen some of them still here a month later, and they're still around in the yard. My neighbor picked up probably close to 24 birds off her yard. So yeah, it wreaked havoc on the birds.
Right. Floyd's a science teacher, and we was talking a little bit about the animals know when things going to happen, and we kind of figured out he's got a big old magnolia tree here, and so does his neighbor. And the birds probably took shelter in those trees, and they still got hammered, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They probably took it in there for many a time, and this time it was just more than the tree could handle. So.
All right, we're going to move around here a little bit so the viewers can actually see on these big trees, but I wanted them to see how it knocks nicks out of these branches, and it just ruined this dogwood. Floyd had me come in. We're rejuvenating all of these, treating them all, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute, and we'll move to another part of your yard, Floyd.
Thank you.
Floyd, this big old nice magnolia, and your neighbor's got one too, it just took a bad beating in that hailstorm, didn't it?
Yes, it did. In fact, that's probably the main reason I called you, is because of the fact of I just didn't feel like that the magnolia tree could really survive losing that many leaves, because it never loses all of them, but it sure looks like it lost them all now.
Oh yeah, it's badly stressed, and we hadn't talked about this since you first called me, but you remember what you said when I answered the phone and you told me, or I called you back and you told me that I ought to know you, or what'd you say?
I said you ought to remember coming here. You were here about 20 years ago treating my trees too.
And how did I answer that, Floyd?
You answered it with saying, oh yes, that was 17 years ago though, so that wasn't 20. But we got to looking at the records, it is 20. So.
See, my memory is foggy.
Yeah.
It's a wonder I remember that. But Floyd's been a NutriTreat user for many years, at least 17 or 18. And you remember getting NutriTreat from me on the pecan trees and back?
Yes, I do. Back in, I believe it was in the mid 80s, somewhere in that area. I think that's about right.
Had some good results with it too, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Right.
So.
We still use NutriTreat in our mix now, where we treat trees. It's our trademark product. But you and Leland Blackshears, there's about a dozen of you that go back almost 19 or 20 years that's still been using that all along.
Yeah.
I was talking to you about a little, Floyd's a science teacher, and what school do you teach at, Floyd?
Clarkton High School in Clarkton, Missouri.
And I asked you about a little history of this, and you told me something I didn't know, and the viewers might get a kick out of hearing it too. Tell me a little something about this property that you own here.
Well, this property was this area was originally settled by several people, but one of the original settlers were the bishops, Charlie Bishop, and this was his home place. And of course I bought it back in the early 80s, and from his daughter that had inherited it. But at one time he owned all this area, well, not all of it, but a good portion of this ground around us was owned by him.
What caught my attention is still a solid foundation from back in the early 1900s is under your house, and that people just wasn't doing that back then, were they?
No, they weren't. It's unusual in that regards that he put a solid foundation under the house. This house was built in 1928. The house that was here previous burnt, and he put this house back in its place. He took at that time the timber was dwindling in this area, and he took the sawmill houses, the sheds that I have around that, and he took that, and that's what a lot of the timber of it's in there. So it's a lot of virgin cypress in this house.
Right. Back then you built your structure, your home place from the material on the lands that provided for everything, just about it, the land did. Also, you had told me a little bit about the largest box factory here.
Yeah, it's just across the field in front of us. It used to be the largest box factory. You can't hardly see much remnants of it now, but at one time it was they claim the largest box factory in the world.
That was early 1900s.
That was in the early 1900s, yes.
Also, they claimed back then that had timber that would never end in supply timber. Is that right?
Exactly. One of the books I have read says that Cardwell has an inexhaustible supply of timber, and I wonder where it all went.
We cut it down, Floyd. Yes. We cut it down. Right. You can really see the remnants of what a month ago's hailstorm did on some of these pecans. How many pecan trees you have here in the yard, Floyd?
I have 6 large pecan trees in my yard, yes.
This one is one of the biggest ones here by us, and of course, like you said, you moved here in the 80s, but you've been taking care of this tree. This is your family tree from the minute you got here, isn't it?
Yeah, it has. Been rather large since I got here too, but still hate to lose any of them.
Oh, you betcha. And Floyd had me treat all these after the hail come through, and he had one tree for some reason or other, this small bush behind us, that was, it didn't hurt it as bad, did it?
Well, no, it didn't. It didn't seem to. Maybe it was the way the house was able to protect it or something, because it didn't seem to be as stripped as all the other trees in the yard.
I imagine that big of hailstones, big as baseballs, if that hit you in the head, it'd clobbered you pretty good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it sealed me up in the house. I tried to get out to watch it, and it wouldn't let me open the door.
Oh, I bet. So you were home when it happened?
Yes, I was here.
That'd be scary. I never have witnessed one. I've been behind it and seen where it happened, but I've never been in one. I don't know what I'd do. But your old trees is just, people forget that it just whacks them hard, like taking a baseball bat almost on the limbs, and even on the trunk it knocks the bark off. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's true. Some of the trees in the front yard, you can really see the bark has been knocked completely off of them.
What I did here with Floyd, I add some extra enzymes and some micronutrients and stuff to help it recover quicker from this defoliation right here in the early part of the season, because that will hurt a tree more than anything by losing its leaves early, and it's using from its reserves to put leaves on. So what I did will compensate from that reserves use that it used, and hopefully they'll come out of it and look better than they ever did.
I certainly hope so.
Right. Well, they will, and we're going to come back in the near future, and we're going to see how it catches hold. And I think you're going to be amazed also how many extra pecans you get from us doing this.
That'd be a pleasant surprise.
Yes, sir. Floyd had mentioned off camera there that he's got 3 walnuts, and he didn't care whether them walnuts put on or not, did you?
No, if they didn't put it on at all, if you put something in there to take care of the walnut growth, that would be all right with me.
Well, I didn't do that, but it might have very well got his walnut crop, but he don't care about that anyway, because they're a problem for him in the yard. But pecans, he really he likes his pecans, and we're going to try to get you some pecans.
Well, thank you. I need them.
I appreciate you talking to us, Floyd.
You're welcome.
It's getting that time of year where the birds and the wind help deposit some of these tree seeds, and they come up all kind of neat places. Like right here, this is a nice maple, good straight stem. You catch it after a rain, pull it up, put it somewhere, get it going. Here's an elm that's growing. Right behind it's another little tree. So it doesn't take long to look around your flower bed, see if you got something else to stick out in your yard, and you should be surprised how well these will do if you just give them a little room to grow. Get them out from under these wax plants and these other bushes. So just jerk them up, stick them out in the yard. Just remember, don't plant them too deep, and give them a little water from time to time. They'll be your next family tree. We're here in Jonesboro, and here with me is Maud Boyd. And Miss Boyd, you remember last year when you called me in and we worked on a lot of this for you?
Yes, I do. It sure looks a lot better this year.
Yes, ma'am. At that time, you was getting the fountain redone and everything, and you just recently had that wedding you was talking about then, didn't you?
I did, this past weekend, and it went really, really well. And all the trees are beautiful and green, and the insects just about was all gone. So we've really enjoyed what you did for us last year.
Good deal. And it was a pretty big wedding, too. What size was it?
We had around 175.
That's a big wedding. But you got a big yard, and we're going to move around here and show some of your yard like we did last time. And it was in the, in the fall, so we couldn't see a lot of the prettiness of your yard at that time.
That's true, it was. The trees wasn't budded out at that time, and now they are.
Who redid your fountain for you, Miss Boyd?
Craig did my fountain for me, and he did a really good job, and I've been real pleased.
Yes, ma'am. It really looks good, and you spend a little bit of time sitting around out here, too, don't you?
I do. I like to watch the birds take a bath in my pond.
Yeah, good deal. We will we'll move around back here and talk about some of your other yard.
Okay. All right.
We was on the way around back, and Miss Boyd, I couldn't help but notice this beautiful view of these plants and greenery you got going on. Who'd you have do this for you?
Davis Design Group out of Paragould.
Yes, ma'am. Well, did you have a hand in picking out what you wanted, or he just kind of come up and showed you different things?
He drew it all out on a computer and brought it to me, and I discussed it with him, and we arrived on what I needed and the colors that I wanted.
That is great that you had your input, because you can tell you put your touch on this yard. I said that last time with the interview with you, and you really did, didn't you?
I did. And I love it.
Yes, ma'am, and I do too. I couldn't help but discuss this part here, and we'll still go on around back. We're going to talk about some other stuff.
Okay.
Miss Boyd, we moved around here and back, and this is just a jam-up job on the wall in the whole backyard. And who was the boy that was doing that when I was here before?
Jimmy Davison.
Yes, ma'am. He did a pretty good job, didn't he?
He did an excellent job. This was really growed up back here. I had all rotten railroad ties, and he took all them out and then put this rock retainer wall in for me. He did an excellent job.
Yes, ma'am. I met the boy. He was a good feller. And your yard is really the greenery that you picked and selected, and the trees are just so thick here. And we managed to save them all, I guess, didn't we?
We did. What you did out here with the spraying and the fertilize and for the insects, it has really helped.
At the time, I told Miss Boyd to put a ribbon around some that they wanted to get rid of, but y'all just kept everything, didn't you?
We kept everything. We haven't cut down anything yet.
Well, that's good. Well, hopefully we'll keep them going, and we might visit back here in the future, and we'll talk about this pretty yard, and we'd appreciate it if you'd take the time to talk to us then.
That'd be great.
Thank you, Miss Boyd.
Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about poison ivy in your yard and around your trees. You can spot shoot it, and on the Roundup label, it's registered for the poison ivy, but you'll find it don't always get it. So if you have trouble with some, it's kind of resistant to the Roundup, then you can mix some Roundup and some Weed Be Gone, just double amount. And the producer, John, had a problem in his yard, and the county extension agent said just double the strength of the Roundup, double the strength of the Weed Be Gone. And if you put it in a little spray shot container, so you got full control just where you just shoot it at isolated places, you can rid your backyard of that troublesome poison ivy and still enjoy it. And so just take it out there periodically and shoot that stuff and get rid of it. You'll be glad you did. I'm here in Kennett with Cyril Owen. And Mr. Owen, what caused you to call me in about this tree here last year?
Well, we got a lot of dead branches on it and not leafing out like it should. And we thought maybe we obviously needed some help, and which was the reason we called. The tree's located in such a way we'd like to keep it. It provides a lot of shade and all. It's in this very necessary area here. And we just wanted to save the tree if we could. It looked like it was in trouble. And if we could keep it from dying, why, we'd be glad to do that.
Yes, sir. When I got here, I'd seen what Mr. Owen had going on in his yard with this. Why don't you tell a little bit the viewers about what you've got going on here under the tree?
Well, what's happening here in my backyard is what we refer to as a garden railroad. I'm not particularly interested in towns or replicas of cities and whatever, but just a railroad system that will operate around the yard, in and out of the shrubbery, and I have it coming back on the porch here where I can park it and leave it until the next day if necessary. But it's just a model railroad. It's it's designed in such a way that being outside is not necessarily a problem. I don't mean to say I run it in the rain, but being out in the hot and the cold and moisture is not a real problem for it. Most any other type of model railroading would have to be done inside. But this is designed to be inside or outside, either way.
Yes, sir. And your bridges and your trellises, you build every bit of that. Right? It's hand-built, wasn't it?
All of this is done by hand. I had a friend here. He's like myself, not getting any younger. And but Paul has helped me through the years. Oh, we've been doing this for 20 years or better. And yes, we have built parts of it.
What's his last name?
Paul Petty is his name. He lives here in Kennett also. And but Paul and I have rebuilt it. This is about the third road bed that we've had. We've had the various ones, but we'd see ways we could improve it, and we would come in here with different ideas. What you have here is two complete systems. One's kind of on the ground and one's elevated. And of course those trusses and all are made individually. And but Paul helped me, and we've done it. Not all of it. We just do a little bit, you know, and then next year and next year and next year. At one time, this was out in the front yard.
Oh, it is a big, how long is it from one end to the other? Do you happen to know that?
I got about 300 feet of track, total track.
So it takes a few minutes for that train to get around, doesn't it?
It does. And I've got it with safety switches now where the trains can't catch up with each other. And I can operate as many as 4 at once. Only 2 on the ground level and 2 on the elevated level.
Well, I bet when you got it running, a few people stop and watch, don't they?
They do. Yeah, it makes a lot of noise, and it's unique. I belong to a group in Memphis, Tennessee, and each of those fellows have a layout, and I'm familiar with most of them, and but not too many have this big an area. This is a little large for most layouts that you see, but I'm not too familiar with anything, this side of Memphis or St. Louis, as far as I know.
Now, I know it really caught my attention, and we're going to do our best to save your tree, too. And one of these days when you get this thing running and the yard full of kids, we're liable to stop in and film it going on.
Well, I've had as high as 4 bus loads at once in here from schools and all.
That's wonderful.
Yes. Like I said, there's not too many layouts. Well, I don't know of any, to tell you the truth. But the children like it. And, of course, the engines are noisy, and they're as close to the real thing as today's technology can get. And they do a pretty good job.
Well, that is very interesting. And, Mr. Owen, I really appreciate you taking a minute and tell our viewers what you got going on here.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're out trying to enjoy the outdoors, there's 2 or 3 things you need to take along. One thing I always take along is some insect spray. You don't want to get the bugs all over you. But another thing, if you're in unfamiliar territory where you don't really know quite where you're going, they have made these compasses now so inexpensive that it's foolish not to have one in your vehicle. And they pack around, just put it right on your belt. I think this one cost $3. I think at the time they were first invented, cost the military $700. So they're a worthwhile item to have with you, especially if you're going in the woods or uncharted territory. So take along the bug spray, your camera, you know, maybe a survival book. Hopefully you don't need it, but take along that compass. Enjoy the trees and the outdoors. You know, great strides have been made in the chemical community as the technology come available now where you don't need to clumber some capsules to tree, and we can put actually 9 or 10 different products at one time in a tree. You can see it boiling out from around the base of that as I'm injecting this into the soil ball. Amino acids, different miticides, insecticides. We can choose what we want to treat for, and we get a long residual from this. So you get a year's worth of good or longer out of our injection when we do a tree. An actual mold of chemicals put around your tree, and it's all moisture activated. So as the weather hits it or the rain, it supercharges it again and carries through the tree. So to get rid of your unwanted insects or to revive a tree to put new life in it, you know, that's what we do. We put the zap back in the sap. We give new life to old trees. That's what we do. We're the tree doctors. Dickey Tree Service in your yellow pages under trees.
Well, that's all the time we have for Tree Doctors today. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, if you need to get a hold of Dickey Tree Service, it's pretty simple. You can call the number below, or you can go to dickeytree.com, and it'll answer any question that you have. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on Tree Doctors.